Hi everyone, just doing a really quick test, testing my Zappi charger, charging in Eco Plus mode, and I'm testing putting a frying pan on the smallest ring of my induction hob. As you can see here, that's the smallest ring. What I'm basically doing is observing on the Zappi that we've got some solar coming in at 1.8 kilowatts. Where the house is using 0.5 kilowatts, that's the hob on, and we're still charging the car at 1.2, and that's how the Zappi should work. It should adjust to what solar is available versus what the house is consuming. And as you can see here, it's working fine, zero draw from the grid. But if I then change and put the same pan on the medium-sized ring and try and heat it at the same sort of level, we get some different results. Back to the Zappi, and what we can see, we're getting the same amount of solar roughly. We're charging at a similar sort of rate, 1 kilowatt, a little bit less because actually we're using a little bit more on the house. But what you can see here is it's pulsing. It's pulsing between 0.4, 0.5 and 0.7. And as a result, we're bringing in some draw from the grid. So this pulsing is occurring too quick for the Zappi to react. You can see the same symptom occurring as well when you look at the smart meter. It pulses from 0 when there's no grid draw while it's charging, but then it pulses into what's showing here at 230, 240 watts, while the Zappi can't adjust in time. Now this might all seem like a complete waste of time and it's a bit anal and what on earth am I worrying about, these point this and point that, is it really worth it? Well, it is, because I want to understand. I want to understand how it all works. And one of the things that occurred to me probably over the last few months is I've started to wonder whether the Zappi is causing, while charging, a little bit more grid draw than it used to. I would say a lot, but we're only talking 1 kilowatt hour, 2 kilowatt hours, etc. So I'm starting to try and do some detailed tests now to try and see whether it's my imagination or whether it is the Zappi reacting more slowly to changes in solar and house usage, or is it other things? And that's part of what this test is, to test the other things. Things like the hob that's causing the problem. I had a good example the other day while Susan was cooking a risotto on the hob. I noticed while I was looking at the My Energy app that we were using 1 kilowatt from the house. And I started to think, what on earth was consuming 1 kilowatt? And of course it was the hob, and she had the largest hob ring on, and that was what was consuming it. And that was on for nearly an hour. Now, I was looking at the My Energy app, and I could see that we had more than 2 kilowatts of solar energy coming in continuously through that period. So in theory, that should be 1 kilowatt to the house for the induction hob, 1 kilowatt from the solar can then be diverted by the Zappi into the Kona, because the Kona can charge at a lower rate than 1.4 kilowatts. So that should work absolutely fine. But more energy was used than I expected, and obviously it's to do with this pulsing. So the pulsing seems to be using, for example, 500 watts, let's say, over that hour period rather than the kilowatt. So it's pulsing in and out. So that 400, 500, 600 watts that we're consuming from the grid every time it pulses in, every second or two, basically over the entire hour, we're effectively running the hob at 500, 600 watts continuously from the grid, because the Zappi's not adjusting in time. So cooking on the hob at 1 kilowatt when I had enough solar energy is actually consuming grid draw. And yeah, that's just not how I'd expect it to work. So the Zappi isn't reacting fast enough to those changes, and yet it pulses in, for a second or two. So how fast is the Zappi actually reacting for that, and how fast did it used to react? Have some of the firmware changes slowed that reaction time down a little bit? That's the sort of thing that's on my mind. So yeah, I could just say, well, use the small ring all the time, but you can't live your life like that, can you? But I want to understand where the grid draw comes from. And yeah, on that day where we were cooking that risotto, probably half a kilowatt hour was consumed cooking when I didn't expect any to be used, because there was enough solar energy. And it also makes me think, well, with the Zappi, is it compatible with things that pulse quickly? So with an oven coming on and off, well, our oven is about 2.6, 2.8 kilowatts, and that pulses in typically for about 40 seconds. So it heats the oven for 40 seconds, then it goes off for about 40 seconds. The temperature drops, then it heats it again for 40 seconds, and it goes off again. Now, the Zappi works perfectly for that. It cuts it out, and it brings it back in again. It cuts it out. You know, it does what it's supposed to do. And the same, I guess, with other things with thermostats, like an iron. The thermostat is going to go on and off all the time, so you're going to hear it click in and out, and it should cut out and cut in as it's supposed to. But if something is clicking on, in and out, pulsing every second or two, how is the Zappi going to react to that very fast pulsing of electricity draw? If I had a storage battery at home, I guess it wouldn't be a problem, because that will work at a much faster time and therefore will adjust the energy that's needed, and therefore I won't draw from the grid. That's the theory anyway. You need something that's very fast in its reaction time. Anyway, I just thought I would share this observation and thought and ask for comments. Why do you think I'm getting that grid draw on the Zappi? Is there a parameter on it that I can use to improve so that there is less grid draw? So I hope that's okay to share this observation with you. It's a process for me. It's not just a single test that explains everything. I'm going to have to be doing lots of tests at home to work it out and try and understand in my mind how the things work. But then also I'll be asking my energy as well to try and help me fully understand if there are some extra parameters there that will help avoid that grid draw in those sort of situations. If you know more about it, leave some comments below. Let me know. I don't know the answers to these things. I'm just sharing with you my observations and a test that highlights a difference where there is grid draw and there isn't. And I'm very interested in trying to minimize that as much as possible. Thanks for watching, everyone. I hope that was of interest. Yeah, just a really short video. Take care. See you again soon. Bye-bye.